Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, joined as always on Tuesdays by Dan Wetzel. Big show ahead. Will Howard, the Ohio State quarterback, will stop by for an interview. Bill Landis and I will rank the top Northern running backs. We'll have the punt and block of the week. And then, is that all? Oh, that's a full show. That's a good show. But we're going to start off with Dan. Dan Wetzel, thanks for being here, brother.
Always good to be on. Happy Tuesday.
So we're going to talk about Nebraska-Ole Miss and two not off-brand, but off-the-radar Heisman candidates in Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. But I want to start with Nebraska because I feel like you were always, you're a man of the world, and the world includes Nebraska. I talked about this with Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule talked about this with everybody. And by the way, if you're here watching Kings of the North, if you're joining us today, so grateful. Give us a thumb, subscribe, tell a friend. We're so excited to have you. The idea that good Nebraska is good for college football. Matt Rule thinks it. I think everybody in Nebraska thinks it. Should we think it, that they are 2-0 and handled their business against Colorado? How big of a deal do you think is Nebraska in the scheme of things anymore?
Well, it hasn't been big, but it can get big. I kind of always reject the notion that like the sport's more fun if this team is good. There's a bit of nostalgia to it, but like somebody else is good. That can be exciting also. I haven't been this bullish on Nebraska since I don't know when, a long time, since they probably came to the Big Ten. Obviously a great performance on Saturday night. If you've ever been to a Nebraska game, I know you have, Doug, it is a absolutely fantastic place to watch a football game, especially earlier in the year. But even into November, the pageantry, the balloons, the city, the way it all comes together, it is the focal point of the state. It is just great tailgate scene, great everything, right? Just a terrific environment. And they have been able to keep that going through a lot of lean years in a way that really almost no program ever has, right?
Yeah.
The sellout streak, the show, Nebraska football for many of the last 10, 15 years has basically been the show is the show. Like they're going for the show, not for the actual football. And so to see a quality product on the field and to see that loyalty and that reward and those kind of 365-day-a-year fans get a team that they can truly believe in, and a young talent like Dylan Raiola that they can truly believe in, and a coach in Matt Rule that they truly can believe in, I think is awesome. I think Nebraska fan deserves it. These are not fair weather fans. This is the exact opposite of fair weather fans. And so I'm really happy for them in that win against Colorado.
If I had planned this better, we would be doing our rankings of college football programs that mean the most to their state. And this is one of those where I feel like sometimes, and it's why we do this, we created this show, that the South wants to claim this, Dan, that we understand that, especially traditionally decades ago when there weren't as many pro sports in the South and your college football team, maybe your college basketball team was like the number one unifier in your state. And if all the pro teams were in the North, it was maybe a little bit different. So I would think that Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and states like that, you would say like, hey, this is the thing that nobody can care more than the people in our state. But Nebraska is a perfect example of wouldn't Nebraska, now Iowa would be high on this list. Ohio State would be high on this list, right? We could run through other programs that mean so much to their state. But wouldn't Nebraska be super high? I think Nebraska could make a case. I was just at West Virginia 2 weeks ago, and I interviewed somebody in the parking lot who said, when it's not football season, everybody in this state is depressed. And then his friend said, yeah, this football program makes this state go. West Virginia would be high on that list. Wouldn't Nebraska make a case for number one? Do you think single program?
Number one. I don't know. Off the top of my head, number one. Alabama, obviously, yes. But there's also 20-25% of the state likes Auburn.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So West Virginia, only state school, but a large portion of West Virginia is kind of, I wouldn't call it a suburb, but within striking distance of Pittsburgh, and you got the Steelers and stuff like that.
Right.
Ohio State, obviously, I think Ohio State has more fans than any school in the country, or Texas. Like, these are massive things.
Right.
Ohio State's got NFL teams. There's people in Cleveland and Cincinnati don't care at all. Right. They don't. It's yeah, we like Ohio State, but I don't pay attention to college football. You have NBA teams. You have all the different stuff. Texas, it's too big. Yeah, Texas football is huge, but tons of other schools are fans. Nebraska is it. There's maybe some Creighton Blue Jay basketball fans.
Yeah, watch out for Creighton. Yeah.
Not a lot of transplants moving in to Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's not like Omaha is Chicago, and you go to a sports bar in Chicago and they've got every single game around the country. There's 10 people watching the Iowa game, the Michigan State game, the Penn State game, right? It's a transplant. Not a lot of transplants in Nebraska. You're from Nebraska, you live in Nebraska. Omaha's certainly become a fantastic city, but you're not getting tons of people moving in. So I would certainly put that at that level. Again, Mississippi, sure, but Mississippi State, more than
right.
one. You got part of the state is near Memphis, or maybe you're Grizzly fans or something like that. There's nothing in Nebraska. There's not a pro team anywhere close. You got to go to the Chiefs and stuff like that. So this is it. And I think you feel that when you're there. And so I would say, yeah, it would certainly make the case for number one. Someone could come up with something else, but I doubt it. And Nebraska's identity for so long was it had this football program. I mean, really didn't have a big population. There isn't a whole lot else. Like I said, Omaha's come a long way, but for many, many decades, there really wasn't much there except Nebraska football. So I think because of that, I would certainly make the argument it's number one.
So one of the things that we've talked a lot with the 12-team playoff, everybody says it's going to be great, that you're going to give more teams hope. You're going to give more fan bases something to shoot for at a national level during the season. And I do think we can find a way, and we will find a way in this sport, to not completely kill regionality. The conferences are kind of killing it, but if you can keep some non-conference regional rivalries, it's super important, and things like that. Colorado and Nebraska playing in the non-conference is an example of that. They're playing in Oklahoma in the non-conference. Like, you've got to keep some of those things going. But one of the other things that I think the 12-team playoff can do is breathe life back into traditional blue bloods who are not one of the 5 best programs anymore. But if you're only trying to be one of the 10 or 15 best programs, to your point, the idea of, does it matter to the sport if a single program is good? Well, because somebody else will be good. But when it's this, people thought the sport was getting stale, it's Bama every year. It's Clemson every year. It's Ohio State every year. It's Oklahoma every year. I think the idea that Nebraska can talk about the playoff, I think that's tremendous for the sport. That Penn State can talk about the playoff, that's tremendous for the sport. I think those might be the 2 biggest examples to me, because these are blue bloods who aren't down. They're not dead, but they aren't competing at the absolute top anymore. And I think, and Penn State certainly has been better than Nebraska, but you got caught in a no man's land. I think there really existed a no man's land for the former traditional superpowers who came down one level. And I think this breathes life back into them. I hope Nebraska fans are thinking about the playoff in October. I hope Penn State fans are doing that. And that's just not where these programs have been.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in this as the key to the playoff, not who actually wins the thing, because it's probably going to be the same couple teams. I'll give you an example. If you're in Northern Illinois, you're like, man, we won all our games, we might make the playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, when does that ever happen, right? Like, it would be the biggest. Yeah, you made the Orange Bowl once. On New Year's 6, no one's watching that, right? Anything's possible. Absolutely with Nebraska. The playoff redefines what's a successful season. And it does that in the men's basketball tournament as well. People hang banners, Sweet 16, made a Sweet 16, right? Got in, won a game, made a Sweet 16, made a Final Four. Oh my goodness. What if Nebraska's hosting a playoff game? Biggest event in the history of the state of Nebraska. What if they win that playoff game, right? What if they are in the playoffs and win a game? Like, these things are going to be so big. They don't have to do it. Nebraska was a powerhouse at a time when revenue athletic departments were funded mostly by ticket sales. And because they had this huge stadium, and because they sold it out every day, and because they were the kings of their entire State, and they were really well run, and they obviously had two Hall of Fame, all-time great coaches. They were able to build up their program and win. They don't have that proximity to talent. The idea that they're going to beat a Georgia or an Ohio State or an Alabama or an LSU, like these certain schools have such a bigger advantage, is limited. And so it's like, yeah, we're playing, but what can we really accomplish here? And now I think you have a secondary thing to chase: a playoff,
Yes.
a home game, a victory, a Final Four. All of those things would be just unbelievable for a school like Nebraska, for Penn State, for Wisconsin, for a Michigan State. Some of these schools that you're like, yeah, I mean, like, what's the realistic ceiling for those schools? And a Notre Dame, right? All those things should just be epic. And I think that's what this playoff is doing. And I would say for Nebraska fan, is it going to be this year? I don't know. You got to run in it, but you're going to have to play really, really. I mean, Colorado did not put on much of an effort. They still got, like, I was looking at the schedule. We got Illinois coming up. They're at Purdue. They have Rutgers, right? Now, I mean, we're a bunch of, I imagine everyone here is a little off kilter on how much they love college football. And so I'm going to admit that all three of those games, like, really interest me. Okay. Now, maybe the average fan's like, what are you, crazy? You're excited about Nebraska Rutgers? Yeah, I am. But you got to get through can they run that table? This isn't Ohio State where you're going to be like, yeah, they should be able to roll through that. But there's a chance they're 7-0 when they go visit Columbus. I'm not so worried about this year with Nebraska. Matt Rule tends to hit big in year 3. He did it at Temple. He did it at Baylor. And year 3 goes big, and they've got the quarterback. This kid is terrific. He looks like Mahomes. He kind of acts like Mahomes. I'm not saying he's Mahomes, because no one is, but he's pretty darn good. And how excited are you at Nebraska, not just for this year, and hey, we had an incredible Saturday night, and boy, this Illinois game is going to be really big, and Rutgers, and boy, what if we did get to 7-0 and got the big scene at Ohio State? But what about next year? What about the year after? Nebraska has built what you can do and are in position to get back to being that playoff contender every year. And I think that's where Nebraska can be great. If you're asking Nebraska to win national championships and be better than Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State, I think that's a lot to ask. But to be one of these top 8 teams, 4 teams, certainly top 12, absolutely Nebraska could do that under Matt Rule.
This is the show where we are excited about Nebraska
and
Rutgers.
Yeah.
We exist.
Someone has to be.
Somebody has to be. Dan, somebody has to be.
I'm excited.
Is Paul Feinbaum excited about Nebraska versus Rutgers? No. Kings of the North. We live for this, Dan. Fire it up. Nebraska Rutgers. I'll tell you what, I think we've talked a lot about the idea of 7-0 Nebraska going into Ohio Stadium. They have 4 super interesting Big Ten teams, as you said: Rutgers, Illinois, Indiana, and Purdue.
And Indiana.
Those teams, they're all better than people think. I'm not going to call that a month of bangers for Nebraska, but those are good football games. And so we know there's a lot of reason. Woo, Nebraska and Rutgers. Look at that. Look at those reds.
Damn gorgeous. Damn gorgeous. This couldn't be prettier. Very similar.
Who wouldn't want to make a show? Look what you get to be a part of. You have a great show, Dan. You have a great show. But look what you get to be a part of every Tuesday.
I couldn't be more excited. Really the old time graphic designers who came up with school logos, team logos, really creative. Let's have an R and let's have an N.
R. It's not Nebraska and Nutgers. It's Nebraska and Rutgers. How about this?
You ever hear the old Nebraska put down, the old Big 8 Nebraska put down? Nebraska fans are going to hate me for this.
What is it?
They'd say, what does the N on the Nebraska helmet stand for? Knowledge.
Oh, that's not nice.
Yeah,
that's why they left. How about that? Big 8.
Sooner fans said that. Yeah.
Stupid. Who's raking in the money now with their knowledge? They got money falling out of the sky in the Big Ten. Let me ask you this. We had a big Nick Saban discussion once upon a time on this show. Because I was trying to think, has there ever been a coach who was really successful in college at 2 places, then went to the NFL, wasn't great, and then came back and revived a traditional power. And it's like, man, that probably has never happened before, except with the greatest coach of all time, Saban of the Plains. Is that an appropriate nickname?
I think so.
What do you think?
Let's throw some extra pressure on Matt Rule. I'm sure he would appreciate that. Yes, Matt Rule. We expect Nick Saban-like results out of you.
But listen, where's he going? Look, why can't he get it back? And we understand all the recruiting realities, but they're going to have money. They're going to have people throwing money at NIL. They're going to create a place where kids will want to transfer in the portal. We understand that recruiting in Nebraska is not recruiting in the South. But why would Matt Rule ever leave? What's going to be better than Nebraska? Is he really going to be dying to go back to the NFL? And why can't this guy does know how to build a program? Why can't it be on that level, Saban of the Plains? We're not asking him to be the greatest coach of all time, but a similar revival. Why is that not on the table?
I think it's absolutely on the table. The Nebraska, again, could be a playoff contender most years, if not almost every single year. Time to do it. Because look at what is the problem, right? Proximity to talent. Recruiting is the problem. And for a long time, they were able to get down into Florida and get those guys and bring them up. Texas, it's a little different now. NIL is one of the best things to happen in Nebraska. They have tons of fans. They have tons of money. And so they are able to spend that money to get players. The number one way, just think of anybody listening to this, is someone offers you a job and it's in a different town or a town maybe you don't want to move to. What would make you want to move? Money, right? Well, I'm going to get a 20% raise, a 50% raise, 100% raise, whatever. That's it. We're packing up. I'm moving to Omaha. Otherwise, you don't do it. But that they can't overcome geography, but money can decrease the importance of that geography in recruiting and in player procurement. How many wide receivers are going to want to play with Dylan Raiola the next couple of years? And then you have legitimate NIL. Okay, Dylan Raiola is the biggest star in the state of Nebraska right now. If you have a car dealership, you want him to legitimately do commercials for you. If you have a financial planning service, he is the legit NIL. So there's additional money because he is playing in this place where he's the number one star. You could be the number one star at Michigan and you're still not bigger than Jared Goff at the Detroit Lions, right? JJ McCarthy was a huge star at Michigan. He and Jared Goff, he's more popular. The Lions are more popular. I won't bring up the Browns, but Joe Burrow is bigger. Like you don't have any of that. So he's going to make that. He's like Caitlin Clark. They're going to make Caitlin Clark didn't even take collective money when she was at Iowa. She took the State Farm money and the Gatorade money and all that. So you have legit NIL opportunities, which is fantastic. And then you have plenty of money. This is where a Nebraska fan can sit there and say, because when you can build facilities, right? But everyone builds facilities, and facilities are a passive dollar. You got to get somebody there to see your weight room and be more impressed with your weight room than someone else's weight room and all of that. That's a hard dollar to get a return on investment. But if you already have that, and now you sit there and say, hey, I'll give you 10% more money, come play for us and come play for this guy who looks like an NFL quarterback and play in front of our 80,000 and be the big star in the state. And if you're big, you're going to make even more money. It's an incredible opportunity. So between NIL and Matt Rule and an expanded playoff, it's a whole new day for Nebraska football and the potential for Nebraska football.
I love the idea as Dylan Raiola as some combination of Patrick Mahomes and Caitlin Clark, which I think is a great way
to describe it. Can I put more pressure on him? Can I put more? But of course, listen, he's the one who's dressing like Mahomes. I didn't do it. No. You're the one jumping like Mahomes. I mean, like, all right, you want to be Mahomes? Let's do it.
He tiptoes like Patrick Mahomes. But he walks. It's one of those things like you just like you. But Patrick Mahomes does not have to be a New York Jet or a Los Angeles Ram or a Chicago Bear to be popular. This is the part of this too, as we get into this NIL world, right? That as everybody's on TV, if you have local support and you're successful, you have a chance to catch on. Caitlin Clark is in the middle of Iowa and everybody in the country knew who she was and wanted to know, wanted to be associated with her, wanted to watch her. That idea, there's a lot of opportunity here for Nebraska. And again, we're asking, can they be 7-0? If they are 7-0, and if Ohio State goes to Oregon and beats Oregon, and that's an undefeated showdown in October in the shoe, blow the doors off the place, right? It is going to be unbelievable, and it's going to be a great opportunity for Nebraska. All right. I have Ole Miss on our list. We talked a lot about Nebraska. Can you just tell me, I thought I don't want to care about Ole Miss. The polls want me to care. So I thought we'd have on a guy who went to Boston College High School, the University of Massachusetts, and lives in Detroit to come on and tell me why I need to care about Ole Miss, or give me permission to ignore them until they play Georgia in week 12.
Yeah, you can ignore them. I don't have any good reason. I mean, they're playing Wake this weekend. They're going to score a lot of points.
Thank you.
I don't know how long a segment can go if I say you can ignore them.
Okay.
They have a very good offense. Jackson Dart. They got Kiffin's Fun. Great place to go to see a game. You know, the Grove and all that. Although no open fires in the Grove. You got to bring your picnic. You can't barbecue in the Grove.
Really? Bring your picnic? That sounds like, is that a Lane Kiffin thing? Hey, you come to Ole Miss, you better bring your picnic in your seersucker suit. We're not handing out picnics here. You're bringing your picnic every day.
No grills. No grills. They're worried someone will burn down the Grove, which is probably a reasonable expectation. But it's kind of weird. You got to cook your food and then bring it, you know, kind of weird.
Have you ever been there?
I have.
I have not, and I'm okay. Did they ever call, so this is Ole Miss. When you were at UMass, did they ever call Massachusetts Ole Mass?
No, they did not. No, they did not. And if they did, maybe they'd spell it O-L-D or O-L-D-E. You know, Massachusetts likes that old English.
That's true.
English thing, yeah. But no, Ole Miss, yeah, it's I don't think you got to worry at all. What is the schedule? They're playing Wake, and they really have a whole lot. I had this called up. Georgia Southern, Kentucky's not looking great. South Carolina, who knows? LSU, interesting game. They got Oklahoma, not as good as they looked, at Arkansas, and they got Georgia.
Georgia, November 9th. They might cruise
Florida.
into that.
This schedule is wide open for Ole Miss. Why care? I will say this about Mississippi Rebel fans. They really have never had much. And I mean, they had two Mannings. But other than that, they tend to just be that program. It's like if Minnesota caught fire and started getting really good. And it was like, kind of like, oh, all right, they're going to have their turn in the, you know, to be really good. So I'll give them that. That's probably the only reason to watch. But Ole Miss is generally just sitting around losing all the big games.
If Minnesota caught fire, it would take 7 years for anybody in the South to acknowledge they exist. Old men. I'll care about old men. I don't care about old men, Old Mass, Ole Miss can cram it until it can't be crammed no more. By the way, this is like Paul Feinbaum's aghast that Penn State goes 10-2 every year. Old Miss is Penn State light, but somehow I'm supposed to care. They beat everybody 90-0 in the what are they, 5 in the polls? I'm supposed to care? I'm not going to care. It's such a fraud. This is like the premium example of SEC bias. Sometimes it's like when you try to say like the world's biased towards the SEC, it's like, well, Georgia and Bama are good. It's like, no, I acknowledge that. We know that. It's just everybody else who gets lifted up by them. Ole Miss isn't playing anybody until November. And the mighty SEC, they're playing squat. All right, let's talk about a Heisman debate. Heisman odds right now. The top 18 guys in the Heisman odds, 16 of the 18, Dan, are quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The only 2 guys who are not are Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty, who is 10th in the odds at 22-1, and 2A player Travis Hunter at Colorado, who is 17th in the odds at 50-1. Who do you think is or who do you think is or will be a better Heisman candidate, Ashton Jeanty or Travis Hunter? Because if a non-quarterback wins it, I mean, I guess it's like if Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 and Ollie Gordon goes nuts, I guess he'd be in that mix. But otherwise, it would only be these 2 guys who would have any chance to take it away from Quinn Ewers or the other quarterbacks. Who do you like better as a candidate?
Travis Hunter.
Okay.
I love Ashton Jeanty. If you watch that Oregon game on Saturday night, and I wish that thing wasn't on Peacock and it was on ESPN.
I've watched it.
It was an exciting game.
This is why they do it. Do you watch Rutherford Falls? Ed Helms is on it. You ever heard of that show?
No. I hadn't tuned into Peacock in a while.
He's the Hangover guy. And now he's on a sitcom on Peacock that nobody knows existed. And so now they say, I don't know. Is it good? The show.
I mean, you're watching it. I mean,
I think I'm just a boring middle-aged dude.
you have a lot of entertainment
Ed
options.
Helms.
You're a very popular guy, very popular. And here you are watching Ed Helms on Peacock. Okay.
There's a lot of Ed Helms DNA in here, brother. So like,
Yeah,
this is not, I'm exactly their target audience, but they got me. Thanks a lot, Oregon, Boise State. You got me to watch Rutherford Falls. I thought Ashton Jeanty was the best player on the field in that game, and Dylan Gabriel, the preseason Heisman favorite, was in that game.
There's no question Ashton Jeanty was the best player in the field. He was a first-team All-American last year. Stayed at Boise. He is an absolute stud of a player. He is a great running back. He's the best running back in the country. He might be the best football player in the country, except for the guy who's playing 100 snaps a game. I mean, Travis Hunter is playing cornerback and wide receiver at a high level. If he is able to stay healthy, we hope, and maintain that through this season, he should win the Heisman. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Nobody can do it. I don't care if Colorado doesn't have an offensive line. I don't care if you don't like Deion Sanders. I don't care if they win 4 games. This guy is a first-round pick at 2 positions. Do not bring me some quarterbacks got 4,000 through for 4,000 yards or something. This is the best football player in America is Travis Hunter.
I can't believe he's 50-1. Here's the thing.
I'm stunned. I know Heisman voters have no imagination, right?
That is
they have
correct.
no imagination. But do not bring me let's say it's I don't know, Carson Beck, right? Carson Beck. Yep. You could put 15 different quarterbacks in that spot, and they're going to pretty much have the same stats and success and all that. There's probably 10 quarterbacks. I don't know, 15.
Yeah.
But is he that much better than the other quarterbacks? No. Is there anybody else playing both ways full time?
No.
Was there anyone last year other than him? Was there anyone? No. This is it. This is the guy. He should win the Heisman. If he continues this, anybody who votes against him, Colorado's not that good. So what? It's supposed to be the most outstanding player in college football.
So you're old enough to remember this, I think. Remember 1987 when Gordy Lockbaum finished third in the Heisman voting?
Yeah,
third at Holy Cross because he played 2 ways, and Rick Riley wrote about him in Sports Illustrated. And all the little Heisman voters, like that's in his instance, like they all followed along. It's like, well, I guess the guy at Holy Cross. Now you were probably in New England then. You're probably all for it. You were on the Gordy Lockbaum train.
Dominating Fitton Field, he was getting that place going. Yeah, Holy Cross, heck yeah, Gordy Lockbaum.
He finished third in
the Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was in that Heisman, wasn't he?
You know who finished 9th, 6 spots behind Gordy Lockbaum in 1987? Emmett Smith. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So we're okay. Hey, the Holy Cross guy. This is so cool. But now we won't do it for Travis Hunter, but I think maybe we won't. Because you said, who cares if people don't like Deion Sanders? People don't like Deion Sanders. And he is not doing himself any favors with the way they're coaching their team and also the way they're talking about stuff. And it seems like the Sanders family show. And then, by the way, there's the rest of the team is here too. I do think, now listen, I don't know. Colorado certainly seems like it's not going to be that good. I actually thought they had a good win in week 1. I was the only person who thought they didn't play very well in week 2. I don't know that the team's going to be very good, but I also think like this, the idea around Deion, I actually think could have a very negative effect on Travis Hunter's Heisman candidacy because he is a singular player, but people are not going to be feeling the Colorado vibes. I'm not saying that's right, but I think it might be real.
It very well might be real. I don't know. 50-1 stuns me. I hadn't looked at that. Heisman voters are boring. They get into a consensus and they pick a guy. I do not like Ashton Jeanty is an incredible player. He really is. If you get a chance to watch Boise State, and I imagine they'll make some of these some of you guys late night at the bar, you're going to see Ashton Jeanty. He's a terrific running back. But this is a guy I would not sit here and pound the table and be like, you got to give Ashton Jeanty at Boise State the spot over whoever is going to emerge. But this guy is playing full time both ways. It's not doable. I don't know that he can do it. 133
snaps a game. 133 snaps a game.
What are we even talking about? He's a starter on 2, and he plays them really well. I have talked to NFL people. They're like, I think he's absolutely a starter. as a defensive back, but I think we're going to move him to offense because offense they tend to fit. Like he's a starter at two different.
Hill.
Yeah,
on offense. Right?
Well, I don't know if he's that fast, but yeah, he's something. He's going to be good. I mean, the guy. How hard is it to practice and master two positions? He is so good. This kid is so good, and he's a really likable person and player as all as I've seen. Coach Prime doesn't bother me. I find it very interesting, but I kind of like interesting things. But I don't care what Colorado's record is. They're playing legitimate competition. And you watch him out on the field and you go, this is a big time player at two positions. So 50-1, I'm not the gambling expert, but I would hope, I would say at 50-1, there's a 50-1 odd that America's Heisman voters coalesce around the actual insanity that this guy is playing 100+ snaps a game in the Big 12 and is potentially could get drafted as a first rounder at either position, maybe top 10, and is doing things we simply don't see. So if you're going to sit there and go, all right, I like this quarterback because he's threw for this much or this team's winning or whatever, like it doesn't matter. There's always a quarterback that throws 30 touchdowns or whatever. There's always a quarterback that does. There's nobody who does this. So Travis Hunter is a treasure. I don't know whether he can make it. That's really the problem.
Yeah.
But how about this? How about a guy who's willing to do this?
Yes.
He's got a massive NFL career waiting, and he's sitting there going, "Yeah, put me out there, 133 snaps. Let's go."
He's Ohtani, man. Yeah, maybe Ohtani will help. Like people have embraced that, so maybe Ohtani will help. All right. We will thank Dan Wetzel for stopping by every Tuesday. You'd like it, right? You do like it.
Love it.
You have fun?
Love it. It makes my Tuesday.
And you can go listen to Dan at the College Football Enquirer on his own show and also read him at Yahoo Sports. Is that right? Did I get all that right? Plus, you write books for kids.
Yeah. Epic Athletes.
Write books for kids. Yeah. All right. When we come back, we will jump right into my interview with Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Talked about the touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith, talked about his career at Kansas State and how it led him to Ohio State, talked about his relationship with Ryan Day and Chip Kelly. We'll do all that next on Kings of the North. Now by Will Howard, Ohio State quarterback and son of the North, Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Are you North through and through, Will? Is it in the blood?
It's in the blood, man. North through and through. I've always been playing in the North, so I guess it's something I'm used to.
You ever playing snow? Snow and down? Give me your best snow football story.
Snow football story was probably last year against Iowa State, our last game of the year.
Farmageddon! What are we talking about?
Yep. That was a crazy game. That was the most snow I've ever played. I played in snow growing up and stuff, and like Pop Warner in high school, but that was easily the most actively snowing snow game I've ever played in, for sure.
I can't believe I just asked you if you ever played in snow, and you played in the Farmageddon blizzard that captured the imagination of all of college football. Does a quarterback love that? Hate that? Like, can you do your thing? Is it just like rolling around with your friends in the backyard in the snow? Was that awesome or awful?
Surprisingly, going into it, I was a little like apprehensive. I was kind of like, we'll see how this is. I don't know how the grip's going to be on the ball. I don't know how wet the snow is going to be. If it's going to be like a melty snow. It was it was pretty cold, so it didn't melt. It was very packed, solid snow. So the problem that we were having more so was the footing. Like nobody could get their footing, but all we could do was throw the ball because I could throw the ball just fine. Like my grip was fine. The balls were not very wet. Like it wasn't like a rainy kind of a wet snow. It was more of a solid snow. So I threw for I think 280 or something like that, and we really struggled keeping our feet. But I was surprised coming out of that game was like all we really could do was throw. Like running the ball wasn't working as much. So I was like, it was a little surprising, a little maybe counterintuitive, but it was fun. It was a cool game to be a part of. Obviously, wish it would have went the other way.
Yeah,
but,
great.
It was
game,
a fun
though.
game. It was
fun game. We loved watching it. I will say, see, this is the kind of conversation that you can't have on a Southern show. You just described all the different types of snow. Is it packed? Is it slippery? In the South, they'd just be freaking out. They'd be saying, like, what is this cold stuff falling from the sky? This is real football, though, man, up north. Okay. In this Ohio State offense, you've been playing ball for a long time, and I want to talk about that. But in this Ohio State offense, can we talk about what your responsibilities are pre-snap and sometimes post-snap in the decisions that you are making? What's it like in this Chip Kelly, Ryan Day offense when you're evaluating things pre-snap? How much ability do you have to maybe check from a run to a pass? What are you looking for? And what's it like? You haven't been in this offense a long time. What's it like as you're diagnosing pre-snap in this offense?
I'd say pre-snap, I have a good amount of freedom, to change some things, but within the scope of what we're doing. I don't think, I'm going to go up there and make a wholesale change and completely change the play and, maybe go from a run to a pass. But a lot of times, we may have some checks built in that we've talked about throughout the week. If we have this, we want to alert it to a different look. There's certain things, but a lot of them I've been coached on. Very rarely am I just going out there and going off the books and coming up with something. Have I done that before? Yeah. And I think my experience definitely, feeds into that a little bit. But, I think overall, pre-snap, we kind of have a plan. And the biggest thing that Coach Kelly and Coach Day are big on is go up there with a plan. And, whatever they're going to throw at you, anticipate the hard and react to the easy, because the thing that they throw at you that may be hard, you got to be ready for that. And then whatever's easy, you just react to that. And that's one of the big things that they talk to me about all the time. And I think I've gotten better at my just pre-snap recognition of some things. And obviously the experience and the amount of snaps that I've played up to this point definitely helps with that. But yeah, they give me a pretty good amount of, responsibility with that pre-snap.
Anticipate the hard, react to the easy. Is that yours or is that theirs? Where'd that come from?
That's a Coach Kellyism right there.
These coaches with their T-shirt slogans, man. That's just life advice right there, right?
I know exactly. That's good for anything in life.
Okay, so post snap now. We were talking about this the other day. Obviously, we have run pass options all over the place in college football right now. Do you ever have run pass options in this offense?
Yeah, I guess if you want to put it like that, I would just call it a run pass option, but there may be multiple pass options.
Okay.
Can I throw to this guy? Oh, let me kick it out to this guy.
Okay.
Within the pass part of it, there may be certain progressions. But obviously in the run pass option, hey, we got to run first, and if they take that away, then we got the pass. And if the first guy, maybe the Mike jumps on the stick route, then I'm coming outside to the nickel jumps on the stick route, then I'm coming outside. There's certain things like that.
Okay. Can I ask you about the touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith in week 2? You guys, I think, are trips to the left. You motion Carnell Tate to the right. It feels like that sucks up the corner a little bit. I don't know if that's a run pass option or not, but you end up hitting Jeremiah sort of in a triangle between 3 guys, and then it is explosion time. Mm-hmm. What was that play call like? What was that read like for you? And then what was it like watching Jeremiah Smith go bye-bye?
Yeah, as soon as that safety went down, I knew he was gone. I mean, there was no question in my mind. You can't
be coming downhill on Jeremiah Smith when he's catching the ball, right?
No.
If you're coming down, he's going by you.
Yeah, good luck with that. But so on that play, we had a bunch formation in the boundary. We slid to a bunch formation in the boundary, had a little motion to it. And we were trying to get their eyes messed up. We got their nickel into the boundary because we had a 3-by-1 set into the boundary. And they didn't bounce the backers back out when we motioned Carnell back out to the field. So they really had no flat player to the field on that play. So it was really easy pickings for me because on that play, I'm in and outing the field flat defender with a throw. If we have 2 flat defenders in the field, then we're giving it. If we have one, then we're reading it. But if they have 0, then you kind of have your pick. And I looked out there, and I really probably could have thrown it to either of them, to Carnell or Jeremiah. But obviously, on that one, we'd prefer to throw the the hitch route. So Jeremiah just came open, put it on him because there was no flat defender out there, and that's my read. So just put it on him and let him do the rest. And that was obviously pretty fun to watch.
Can I be honest here with things? And I just we have to make an admission here. We guys like me and fans, we just sit back and we talk about run pass options and all this stuff like, run pass option, no big deal. And then you quarterbacks at times talk about things and you sound like you have a computer in your brain and you're just like all these things. What do you have to do? And now you've been doing this for 5 years, but like the processing that has to happen in a nanosecond. Is it even, how much is it thought right now? How much is it instinct because you have drilled it so often? And what does it really take? I was thinking about this, like I was going through the drive-through the other day at a fast food place, and the person who was like taking an order and also handing me my food and doing the change at the same time, I thought, I can't do that. That's two things at once, and I can't do that. I can't play the drums where I have my foot and my hand going at the same time. And now being quarterback, all this instantaneous processing, what's it like to get to the point where all of that can happen for you?
Yeah, it's we say a lot around here, you either remember, or you learn. You're either out there remembering or you're out there learning, and if you're remembering, then that means that you've done that before. You've had that play before, you've had that look before, and you're like, oh man, I've done this. And at that point, it's kind of an instinct thing.
Okay.
Or you're learning. And that's when you're kind of behind and you're like, hey, I've never seen this look before. I've never done that. And that's something that we talk about, remembering versus learning. And when you're out there, you want to be remembering, you want it to be, you've had this many looks at, you've watched it on film, you know what they're going to do. It's all in your preparation, and then translating it to the field, and I think that was why we had the game that we had this week was, I think, the way that we practiced. I think we practiced really, really well, really, really fast. It's all about experience and reps and getting those reps. And the more that you rep it, the more that you see that, that look, the faster you can just react to it and let things come to you, and I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed as being a quarterback here at Ohio State is, you can't take any plays off, mentally or physically, even if it's a play where I don't necessarily have any responsibilities, all I got to do is, toss the ball to the running back or whatever it may be. There's still things I need to look at. I need to time up the motion right. I need to make sure that they're in the right look, that we're lined up correctly. Like every little thing has to be paid attention to. And if you have that sharp laser focus every single play, that you're like, man, I'm just going to execute this play one play at a time. Like that mindset has helped me a lot, and it's kept me more locked in. And like, I knew exactly what Western Michigan was going to do just because of all the film that we had watched and what we knew what they were going to do, and things like that. It's all banked reps and experience and learning back on, leaning back on the training that you've had, because you follow the lever you're training.
Okay. What is a quarterback's relationship like with his position coach, with his head coach? You had a great offensive coordinator with Colin Klein last year. Did he give you get a little cut when he gets the job at Texas A&M? You get a little piece. It's like, hey, help you make you look good, Colin. Come on, man. You're not getting that gig. You're not getting the big Texas A&M oil money if Kansas State's going 3-9. You worked with great coaches at Kansas State. Now you're with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. How much do you talk to Chip? How much do you talk to Ryan? What's the time spent like with those two guys?
Yeah, we spend all day together. It feels like, if I'm not with Coach Day, I'm with Coach Kelly, and vice versa. It's we're constantly talking, and we're constantly going through, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I think that, that relationship between, not just player coach, but especially, starting quarterback to play caller / head coach. I think that relationship on a college football team is crucial. And, the more, that we can be together and be around each other, and the closer our relationship is, the better. And I think that, me and Coach Kelly and Coach Day, we've developed a pretty good system in terms of preparation and how we've, gone about the first 2 weeks here. We're all kind of trying to figure out each other still, how we prepare for games, what our schedule is going to be like. But I think we've kind of knocked out a pretty good schedule. I think I really like how we're we're going about doing these things. And our relationship's been really good. Coach Kelly and Coach Day are some of the smartest coaches I've been around, and just getting to be around them as much as possible has been really good for me.
Is it ever just the three of you guys in a room talking stuff out?
I'd say rarely ever, because there's just always, whether it's the other quarterbacks or whether it's, Billy Fessler, Riley Larkin, or whoever it is, there's always other people involved because there's just so many people involved in this. But yeah, I mean, do we have conversations, just three of us? Absolutely. Yeah.
I just didn't know when Chip and Ryan are sort of like away from the cameras and it's just the two of them with somebody else, if the New Hampshire accents come out.
See, I haven't noticed it. I guess I'm a Northeast guy myself. So sometimes the accents kind of, I don't notice them as much, but I've definitely noticed it in them a little bit.
Be careful. Watch for that. 20-1 Heisman odds for you right now. Does that seem about right? A little high, a little low? Starting quarterback at Ohio State, man. Come on.
Yeah. I'm not paying attention to that stuff. I try not to worry about it as much.
Okay.
It's
okay.
It's all
Don't worry
good.
about it.
It's all good. It's all good stuff. But as long as we win all our 12 games and then win them all, that's what matters to me. And then all those individual accolades they'll take care of themselves.
What's it like when you go to a new school and you're trying to like vibe with the traditions at the school? Because did you drop an OH or something on that? Like, are you what are you like? You're figuring out all this stuff. Do you have to study it? Make sure Carmen, Ohio after the game. Like, what are you up to? How did you get up to speed on all the Ohio State traditions?
That's a good question. It was, I guess when I first got here, you got to assimilate to the culture a little bit. And I was asking questions, and, they talked about it a little bit, what the skull session looks like, what Carmen, Ohio after the game looks like. And thankfully Carmen, Ohio is on the scoreboard. Now I think I know the words now.
Okay.
But the fight song in the locker room, that was something that I needed to learn. The quick pals, like all these little things. I was like, man, like there's a lot more. And, we did a lot of stuff at K-State, but I feel like the tradition here and the little things that we do before games, whatever it is, like I definitely had to. And I think the first week was good because I was like, man, I've never done any of this. We've walked through it. We've talked about it, but I've never actually done it. But once I did it for the first time, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, this is really cool. I've watched it my whole life. It's really cool to be a part of. And I was like, man, I just want to jump in and do it. So, I threw up an OH. I thought that was pretty fun. And man, I'm a Buckeye now. So let's do it. Let's go.
The people love the OH. Now they love the touchdowns the most, but when you have a touchdown, you drop an OH on top of it. That's great. I did want to run. I like this. They do this sometimes with magazines. We'll do this quickly. Like they run through somebody's career, like with a movie star, and say, "You made this movie. You made this movie." Your Kansas State career is pretty wild. Because in 2020 and 2021, Skylar Thompson's the starter, but he gets hurt both years, and you wind up starting 10 games combined in 2020 and 2021. You're a true freshman in 2020. You're starting half the games. What was it like? How did you handle getting thrown in as a super young dude, balling out as a starting quarterback in a power conference?
Yeah, it was that was a rough / kind of interesting time in my life. I was, that freshman year was rough, man. I didn't play very well. I didn't feel like I was myself. I just felt like I was kind of reaching, and I didn't really feel like I was clicking. I didn't really know what I was doing out there.
Okay.
I hadn't gotten any college football reps until fall camp of that year. And I got thrown in
the COVID year.
Yeah, because of COVID. I came early, but we didn't get any spring ball. So fall camp was the first reps that I had. And, I just felt like, obviously I wanted to say that I was ready and, that I prepared, like I could start a game. But, looking back at it, I have no idea how I was doing what I was doing out there. I mean, like knowing what I know now, I'm like, I don't know how on earth I was doing that. I'm looking out there, I'm getting out on before the play, and we're breaking the huddle, and I'm just looking, I'm like, man, which way's the motion coming from? You know, like, let alone what the defense is doing. Like, I'm looking back at it, it was tough, but it taught me so much, and it grew me a lot. My love for the game, has been strengthened by it. It was weakened
Okay.
at the time. I questioned whether I wanted to keep playing, whether it was worth it.
Wow.
I really did struggle confidence wise. I think it took me like 2 years to get my confidence back. But once I finally got rolling in my junior year, that was when I finally started clicking again. But those first 2 years did teach me a ton.
Okay. And I was talking to people at Kansas State about you again at Big 12 Media Days, and they would talk about how every situation you handled your business, and you've been in every situation as a college quarterback. Because year 3 in 2022, right? Are you expecting like, hey, I've done this work filling in and starting 10 games. This is my time. And then a transfer comes in. And Adrian Martinez comes in. Like, we understand the transfer world, and now you're a transfer. But wasn't that difficult? Because I would have imagined at that point you thought, okay, I put in the work, I put in the time. Now it's my time to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, it was rough, going into that junior year. I felt like it was my turn. Did I understand? Yes, absolutely. Did I feel like I had played my best football up until that point and completely showed them that they should have trust in me? I don't think so. And I'm realistic with myself, and I understand. But going into the last couple games of my sophomore year, my red shirt was on the line, and they decided to play me, said that it was going to be my year going into the next year. And there was just some things that I didn't really like about how we went about the situation. And they ended up taking the transfer, which I'm sorry, went down there. Yeah, we took the transfer, which it is what it is, and it's part of the game. It's part of college football, and I had to deal with it. Was I frustrated? Absolutely. But as soon as I met Adrian, I was like, man, this guy could not be a better dude. He went about the situation so well, and we really clicked. And then he ended up playing 6 games. I ended up playing 6 games, and we won a Big 12. Went to the Sugar Bowl, and it went about as well as a year could possibly go. But yeah, in the beginning of that year, man, it was rough. I was lost. I didn't really know what my next step was, what the plan was, but I just, I said, you know what, I'm going to stay ready, and I'm going to just continue to try and elevate myself and be the best version of myself I can be every single day. And I think that helped. And, just staying ready and finally getting to go out there and just, I think the thing that helped me the most was I just said, screw it. I'm just going to go out there and be me and play loose. And when I finally did that and I let go and I stopped trying to press and be this, version of me that, I didn't really know who that was. I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm just be myself. And that, ever since then, I've just, it's been awesome for me. And, I've been able to just trust in God and let him take the reins and just, be myself.
Okay. And then last year at K-State, you start the whole year. Great Kansas State team, but you also have like the highest ranked quarterback recruit in K-State history comes in Avery Johnson. He's the starter there now. And again, it is your time. And it's not that you're looking over your shoulder, but you also know the reality of like, this is a guy that like, there's a lot of talk around him. You do your job. But what was that like? Because also now you're the veteran and there's a young guy in the room that you also, right? There's some expectation that you got to help get this guy ready for what's next for him.
Yeah. I going into that senior year, I was like, man, this is my year. I'm finally the guy. There's nobody like, contesting me at all, and Avery was a really good player, but I didn't think that, that they were going to, play him or anything like that. I know there was, with NIL and whatnot, there's a lot of politics that go into stuff, and, I don't want to get into anything, but, I know that, they wanted to get him on the field early, and, it was good. I think that the communication part of that, wasn't handled very well, all the time. But I think at the end of the day, it is what it is. And, and I think that, Avery was a great kid, and I loved hanging out, spending time with him. But, I understood the reality of the situation, and, everybody wants that shiny new toy. You give them the shiny new toy on Christmas, and everybody wants that. And I understand it. And, that wasn't the ultimate decision that made me leave. I just felt like I needed to elevate my game, and I felt like, to give myself the best chance at my last year, going into the NFL, I felt like I needed to do that somewhere else. And obviously I found the best place for that. But Yeah, it was last year was, it was solid. There were ups and downs to it, Did I have my struggles at times? Sure. And, Avery's an unbelievable athlete. They wanted to get him on the field, and I think, we did that well, but, ultimately it was still, my team. And, I think, at the end of the day, man, like my days at K-State, like I will cherish them forever. And I love all the people that I had to, came in contact with. And like my brother's still there. He plays there. Like, I'm
Awesome.
We're still Wildcats through and through, and it's there's no love lost at all. So I love those guys, and it was a great experience.
You've been on all sides of it, man. Like there is not a quarterback experience that you have not gone through, and the result is that you came and won the job at Ohio State for a team that's trying to win a national title. So, what a journey, man! Right? Yeah. I mean, like you got stories. You got Orion Day always loves to talk about scars. Right? It's cool to have scars. I'm soft. Guy like me, I'm soft. I got no scars, brother. This is baby smooth. But like you've been through the ringer. You've had incredible highs. You win a Big 12 championship. You've had struggles. You said yourself, like you thought, I don't know, why am I even doing this? Should I be doing this? And to think where you are now, woo, what a ride, right?
Yeah,
look where you are.
It's a blessing, man. It's cool to look back at, and step back, because rarely do you ever, especially in this world of college football, rarely, do you ever get to just step back and kind of look at, how far you've came and what you've gone through and whatnot, because you're always kind of head down grinding.
Yeah.
But when you step back and when I look at, all this stuff that I've been through, it's a blessing, man. It's not all of it was easy. But I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. And, I know God has a plan, and at the end of the day, I just try to give it up and have faith and believe that, God's going to take care of it for me. And I know that I'm just so blessed to be in the position that I am, and to have gone through all the things that, I've gone through, is truly a blessing. It really is.
Awesome. Will Howard, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck this year. And we appreciate having a son of the North here on Kings of the North.
Appreciate you. Go Bucks.
All right. Thanks to Will Howard for that. We love having players on. We have plans to have players, hopefully it all works out. Player from Syracuse this week, player from Rutgers this week. We reached out to all the schools that are on buys in the North, Iowa State and Penn State as well. We want to have players and coaches on here on a more regular basis, but we're new. So we're starting out. So, we're trying to make progress here. But thanks to Ohio State and Will Howard for setting that up. I know on the Tuesday show, when we get to this point, you guys are jonesing for some Bill Landis in your life. So let's get to Bill Landis with his block and punt of the week on Kings of the North.
Bill Landis back here with your Kings of the North punt and block of the week. We're starting off with the punt this week, and it's a doozy. We're going to Golden, Colorado, home of the Colorado School of Mines. Check out what Blake Dowd did in Mines' season-opening win over West Texas A&M. This is Blake Dowd. He's an All-American. He's done this before, but not quite like this. It's a career-long 80-yard punt, 8-0, down at the 1-yard line. One of 2 punts in this game that Blake had downed at the 1. It's just a majestic piece of punting by Digger punter Blake Dowd. Look at the guy running down the middle of the field there. That's long snapper Josh Wojciechowicz. He's going to be helped out by running back Connor Mickelson to make sure this thing doesn't go into the end zone. Incredible job there. Incredible effort. Everybody's partying. How could you not love an 80-yard punt? Shout out again to Blake Dowd. That is an insane punt. 80 yards down to the 1-yard line. Flipping the field. That is the sheer definition of it. Great job out of him. But then again, he's an All-American. He's used to it. I don't know if that'll be topped. We'll see. I'm excited to see if anybody can top an 80-yard punt that gets down at the 1 this season on Kings of the North punt and block of the week. Moving on to the block, we have Ohio State center Seth McLaughlin. Watch what he did on this touchdown run from Quinshon Judkins. Ohio State's gotten 2 really good games out of Seth McLaughlin, the transfer center from Alabama. He kind of springs this touchdown run here from Quinshon Judkins. Judkins' second touchdown run of the game. He's 56 in the middle of your line, Seth McLaughlin. He gets a tackle. He gets a linebacker. He's blocking 2 guys on this play. Here it is from all 22. 56. Gets number 10, turns him. Sees 22 coming, gets a hand on him as well. Turns him away from the play. He's a one-man wrecking crew on this play. It can just be him and Quinshon Judkins, and Ohio State's getting a touchdown. You don't need anything else. Just really good, savvy stuff from a guy who's played a lot of football and a guy who has really improved the center play for Ohio State thus far. That'll do it for block and punt of the week here on KOTN. Congratulations again to Blake Dowd, of Colorado School of Mines, and Seth McLaughlin of Ohio State. We'll catch you next week with more blocks and more punts.
Isn't it nice to see someone doing what they were put on this earth to do? Bill Landis talk about punts and blocks. What makes you happier than that? All right, so I did want to run through, since we had Will Howard on, we talked about this last week, the 13 new transfer quarterbacks in the North, how things are going so far through week 2. Kyle McCord is lighting it up. When we talk about the guys who are really compiling the stats, Kyle McCord, 59 of 86 for 735 yards and 8 touchdowns. It is remarkable. They are chucking it around at Syracuse in a really cool way. They have multiple pass catchers there, and Kyle McCord is having a great start to the season. Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati, the Indiana transfer, 44 of 69, 681, 5 touchdowns. Did not get to go in against Pitt because Eli Holstein at Pitt, the Alabama transfer, led the comeback. 50 of 75, 633, and 6 touchdowns. But again, all 3 guys playing at a really high level. Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, the biggest name transfer, preseason Heisman favorite, still putting up numbers. 622 yards so far, 4 touchdowns, 59 of 71 through 2 games. Offensive line issues, which we covered yesterday on the show, not all the way clicking in there at Oregon, but this guy's still way over 300 yards per game. Will Rogers at Washington from Mississippi State, 552 yards per game, 5 touchdowns. That offense, they lost everybody, but they've been pretty functional so far. And then Will Howard, we just talked to him, 35 of 54, 520 yards and 4 touchdowns. I would say of the 13 transfer quarterbacks, first-year transfer quarterbacks in the North, I think 10 everybody would be very happy with how things have gone so far. The 6 we just talked about, plus I would say Aiden Childs at Michigan State, Curtis Rourke going from Ohio to Indiana, Max Brosmer at Minnesota, and Ethan Kaliak-Manis at Rutgers. Like, again, you are who you are. They want to coach you up, but I think that's 10 where those schools and those players would do it again. I think there's 2 that are a little maybe iffy and uncertain so far. That's Tyler Van Dyke at Wisconsin. They've just not been consistent. They've had flashes. They're going to have to show it against Alabama this week. The Miami transfer to Wisconsin. And then Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. I mean, this is not how Notre Dame thought it was going to start its season. So we talked about that as well. And then the one that has not worked out so far is Mike Wright at Northwestern. From Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, he's been benched. Jack Lausch, the homegrown guy, is going to take that over. So overall, again, like, it can be hard with first-year transfer quarterbacks. We assume it's all going to go perfectly, and it doesn't. Like Gabriel, it hasn't done perfectly at Oregon, but overall, I think 10 for 13 is pretty good on their Northern transfer quarterback so far. All right. One more thing to do. Bill Landis and I ranked the best running backs in the North. We did a top 10 list each. This is the kind of thing that you could go 15 or 20 deep. There's like a real workhorse back on nearly every Northern team. But based on some of the games that guys had in week 2, Landis and I tried to drill down and really make some decisions about who the best running backs in the North are right now. We will get to that right after this on Kings of the North. Now for some running back rankings. Landis, you did a quarterback, what would you call it? Power rankings?
Yeah.
Billy Poll? What was it before the season? What did you call it?
Just power rankings. Yeah, power rankings coming into the season. We'll update them too. I think I want more than 2 games worth of data to update quarterback rankings. So maybe we'll do that in like a week or 2. I think that makes sense.
I'm Bill Landis. I want a baseline of facts before I repower my poll. So, okay, great, fine. But what we wanted to do, it feels like a good season, and maybe it just is a good century for Northern running backs. Is anyone shocked? Like, hey, they could run the ball in the North. Is this news to anybody? But Bill, like 28 teams, I feel like at least 20 you'd go through and say the number 1 guy on that team running the ball is a dude, right?
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, almost all of our teams have a dude at running back. Some have 2. It's like
some have two.
It's an embarrassment of riches, I think, at this particular position. This position in tight end in the North. Really good. Especially when you expand, which we'll do for this exercise. If you expand it to some of the G5 teams in the North, there are some excellent running backs in the North.
So we have expanded it. If we expand it fully to include everybody in FBS who's in our definition of the North, then you're up at like 49 or 50 teams. I think that the difference is whether you call Nevada, which is in Reno, and it snows there,
it does.
Northern or not. I'm not at the moment in love with dividing states, but I think Nevada is 50, if not, it's 49. But then you're bringing in Army and Navy and Temple and Boise State and Colorado State and all the MAC teams. And it opens it up when we do individual player rankings like this. We just don't have time to break down 50 teams every week, but for individual players and for an individual player, we had to expand it for this, right?
Yeah, it's the Jeanty rule. We had to do it.
Jeanty. It's one of those things. What happens when the best running back in your part of the country is not in a Power 5 program? So what you do is you expand your list. So we each made a list of the top 10 running backs in the North. And I will say there are other guys beyond our 28 Northern Power Conference teams that when you expand, Bill, there are other guys that potentially enter the mix. Are there not?
Yeah, there are a couple, especially at Boise State. There are a few guys in the MAC that are interesting too.
There are.
I got a sneak peek at the list. I'm a little mad at myself. But yes, there are some guys that make things interesting.
Oh, did I sneak one in there near the bottom that you didn't sneak in that now you're going to be jealous of? We'll get that guy.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. Yeah.
We also, there is a name that you will hear on these lists that might be on the show this week. That's all we can say for now.
Ooh.
Let's reveal Bill's list first. Top 10 Northern running backs. Bill Landis, what do you got?
I have Ashton Jeanty from Boise State at number 1. I have Kyle Monungai from Rutgers at number 2. Caleb Johnson from Iowa 3rd. Quinshon Judkins from from Ohio State 4th. Devin Neal from Kansas 5th. DJ Giddens from Kansas State 6th. Desmond Reed from Pitt at number 7. Nicholas Singleton from Penn State at number 8. Jonah Coleman from Washington at number 9. And Jam Griffin from Oregon State 10th.
It hurts the guys you wind up leaving off on a list like this. It does hurt.
Yeah.
Quinn Allen from Syracuse, that one hurts a little bit. Who like I would have had Caden Fagan from Illinois second on this list after week 1, and then I think he went 16 for 40 in the Kansas win. So still a good back, but like is not demanding to be in the top 10 to the same degree. Who else were some of the tough cuts for you here?
Well, I did want some representation. So like I don't have both running backs from Ohio State, even though you definitely could. Like Travion Henderson could certainly be on this list. I don't have both backs from Penn State. Katron Allen, I think, could definitely be on this list, and he's not. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, I don't have on my list. I don't have either of the Boston College guys, Trayshawn Ward or Kai Robichaux, who I think could be on there. I'm mad I don't have a MAC running back, and I know that you do, so I won't steal your thunder. But because I think the guy that you picked is the right guy, especially after what happened last week. One other guy in the MAC who I did consider is Anthony Tyus at Ohio. He's a transfer from Northwestern. Had a huge first game against Syracuse, and a decent second game, but I did not put him on my list because the majority of his production kind of came in one game, and he didn't quite back it up in the second game, although it is hard to back up 200 rushing yards game after game.
Devin Mockabee from Purdue, I think a guy you can think about. He was off in week 2, which sort of like when you're looking at stats and whatever, he's still a good back. All right, let's get to my list. Then we can debate like where our lists are different because they're not all that different. All right, mine, Ashton Jeanty, also number 1. Kyle Monungai from Rutgers, also number 2. Caleb Johnson for Iowa, also number 3. I put DJ Giddens 4 from Kansas State. Number 5, I have Quinshon Judkins, who you had 4. Number 6, I have Jeremiah Love, and we have to have a conversation about him because I feel like I have Jeremiah Love because of you. Right. Devin Neal from Kansas, I have number 7. You had him number 5. Number 8, I have Jordan James from Oregon, which is another guy that you have been a fan of. Desmond Reed from Pitt, I have number 9. You had him 7. And the guy that didn't make your list, Antari Brown from Northern Illinois, who is, according to CFBstats.com, let me look. I have to go so far up the list because he's so high. This is yards from scrimmage nationally through 2 games. He's 6th. This is rushing and receiving combined. He's averaging 170 yards per game. He has 168 yards rushing and 171 yards receiving. He had 2 gigantic receptions against Notre Dame. One of them, like a one-hand catch off a little flip that he took to the house. It like broke the game open. So it's not like they're throwing the ball to this guy 30 times a game, but he had just back-breaking receptions in their upset of Notre Dame. And he's also their bell cow. So he's also averaging, 80 rushing yards per game while throwing in that kind of thing. I will say yards from scrimmage nationally. This is not just the North. Ashton Jeanty, number 1, 236 yards per game. Desmond Reed from Pitt, number 2, 205 yards per game. Again, that's run and catch. He had a big, 60-yard catch and run for a touchdown against Cincinnati. Kyle Monungai from Rutgers, number 3, and that is all rushing yards because he's rushed for 373 yards and he has 3 receiving yards. But that's enough to make him number 3 in the nation in yards from scrimmage. Let's start where we agree at the top. Ashton Jeanty is I forget who plays in the South. Does the South have any good running backs? And I'm not even being facetious here. Is Ashton Jeanty the best?
Omarion Hampton.
Oh, yeah. Really no, he looked good. Yeah. He's big and physical. He was a North Carolina guy. We watched him because they beat Minnesota in week 1. Is Ashton Jeanty the best running back in college football at the moment?
Oh, yeah. I don't I don't care. I don't care who's playing in the South. The answer to that question is definitely yes.
Because he's both, right? He's thunder and lightning. He's the guy you give it to break a tackle and get 3 yards, and he's also the guy that'll hit a hole and go to the house. Remarkable. Can we get him on? I think they're Heisman campaigning him. I think we should be able to get him on.
They need to. They need the Heisman campaign him. But I actually wanted to have that conversation a little bit. Like what would need to happen for that to become real?
Yeah. Well, we had that conversation with Dan Wetzel earlier in the show. You and I will double back on it because I do think it's an interesting conversation. But just like body of work and statistically, when you start the season with 6 rushing touchdowns in a game, that gets people's attention. But was he the best player on the field in the Oregon-Boise State game?
Yeah, I think so. It's not close.
Yeah. And he was
the best
on the
player in the country.
He was on the field with the preseason Heisman favorite in Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel. And if you watched that game and said, who does this best? You said, that Boise guy, who's that? So, okay. This was not hard.
I'm just fearful that people aren't going to see him enough.
So the thing that I think is going to matter in this is that Boise is going to be right in the thick of the playoff race for the G5 spot. Now, that might wind up coming down to who wins the championship game in the Mountain West, but they've got to get in the championship game. And you're also keeping an eye on how they look compared to Liberty, how they look compared to the best team in the American and the best team in the MAC. So eyeballs, I think there's more interest in that this is the most interest I think there will be in a season-long storyline of a G5 team. Are they good enough? Because there's a playoff spot at stake. And I think that should help him, right?
Yeah, it probably should. And we will probably, we'll see, I guess. Because they're in the Mountain West and the games are a little more competitive, I don't think there are going to be many games where it's Ashton Jeanty can take a week off necessarily. So I don't think it's started yet, but I at some point we could start having the Barry Sanders conversation with him too, right? So if that happens, then people will be paying attention.
You know what helps your Heisman candidacy? A Barry Sanders conversation. All right. Yeah. Number 2 on our list is Kyle Monungai, and it's his bad luck that Ashton Jeanty exists this year because this guy's a beast. He's hammer. If you would just want to hand a ball to a running back and have him be your workhorse, it looks like this.
Yeah. What makes him not more impressive than Ashton Jeanty, but I would say maybe close to as impressive is that he is he's the guy. Rutgers really can't do anything else. You know what Rutgers is going to do, and then he still does it successfully. And also, by the way, he doesn't play with an all-star offensive line either. I think Rutgers has a decent offensive line for the kind of program that it is, but he's doing a lot of this as a bit of a one-man show, and he would probably push against that notion, but I can say it. He's very good, and he is a guy who I don't think gets enough attention for how good he is.
He has let's see. Well, I'm not in the rushing stats. He is just, they're going to hand him the ball 25 times a game, right? And
yeah,
that's
he has 46 carries in 2 games, and they
which
played
is
Howard and Akron.
And that leads the nation. Ashton Jeanty has 45, and Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State, who's in the South, has 45. So he's going to get the ball as much as anybody, but he's not just, he doesn't get 3 yards every carry, and that's why he has a bunch of yards. He's really good. All right. Number 3, we did agree on Caleb Johnson, who we talked a lot about on the Monday show. Again, 20 total carries on his 13 final yards is a bit of a ding, but it is a power speed combo that's hard to move down a list.
Yeah, he has 5 rushes of 20 yards or more, which is tied with RJ Harvey from UCF for the second most in the country, and one behind Ashton Jeanty, who has the most with 6. And he's second in the country in yards after contact. If you look at some of the PFF stuff, he's just like he's a home run hitter. And he's going to be the guy that if there's another level for this Iowa offense in terms of making big plays, Caleb Johnson, I think clearly is the guy that's going to unlock that for them. So he's been impressive the first 2 weeks. I think he was on the wrong side of Iowa State, kind of realizing that Iowa wasn't much of a threat to throw the ball in the second half of that game. Otherwise, he would have been more efficient down the stretch there. But he's been explosive, which is exactly what Iowa needs.
Your number 4, my number 5 is Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State. Is this a little bit based on, and I don't want to say reputation because he earned it, but he ran for 1,500 as a freshman at Ole Miss, ran for 1,150 last year in a timeshare with Trevion Henderson, doesn't have a ton of carries, but you know what he is, and he had a long run called back. So this is, don't want to be beholden to only this year's statistics, but if you're looking at only this year's statistics, then he's not quite up there because he's in a timeshare and Ohio State hasn't really put the pedal down yet.
Yeah, I tried, unless the statistics were like exceptional as they are, I think with definitely the top 2 guys, I tried to not let that be the only thing that guides me, and just try to think, who do I think is good? And Quinshon Judkins, I think, is still among the best running backs in the country, and we've seen glimpses of it in the first 2 weeks at Ohio State, especially this most recent game. Had he not had that long touchdown run called back, he'd be well over 200 yards rushing right now. With 4 touchdowns, I think. So he's on a decent pace, and I still believe that, like, when Ohio State gets into these tough games, he is going to be the guy that they rely upon. So there's a little bit of a projection in there too, I guess.
No, I think that's fair. I had DJ Giddens 4. You had him 6. He is running for 119 yards a game and 7.5 yards a carry, which caught my eyeball and has done it forever.
Yeah, he's reliable, I think, and he's going to get more too. Kansas State has still not really, I think, taken the governor off of Avery Johnson in terms of designed rushing attempts. Once they do, and it's sort of a 2-headed monster back there every time the ball is snapped, I think it's going to create more space for each of them. I think we'll see DJ Giddens' numbers shoot up, but even without that, he's been reliably productive for a couple of years now. He's one of the best.
Devin Neal is next. He was 5 for you. He was 7 for me, and he's averaging like almost 10 yards a carry, which is very helpful. Again, a guy who's done it forever, right? 9.7 yards per carry, 213 yards on 22 carries, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, 20. We talked about that. Like 20, he needs more than 22 carries. The fact that Devin Neal has 22 carries is a crime. So he needs more work. He'd be among the most productive running backs in the country. Now, he sort of already is with only 22 carries, but imagine if he was getting the workload of a Kyle Monangai or an Ashton Jeanty right now. And maybe it shouldn't be quite that high, but he should have more than 22. Yeah, he's averaging nearly 10 yards per carry. And the other thing that caught my eye, I was looking through stuff, he is 7th in the country in yards after contact, according to Pro Football Focus.
Okay. And then the other guy we both had on here, you had Desmond Reed of Pitt 7. I had him 9. He's a smaller guy. It's a different profile, but really explosive, really like took it to Cincinnati. Pitt comes back in that game from 3 touchdowns down because of Des Reed. Transfer from Western Carolina, but jumping up a little bit in level and like no issues at all, but he's not going to be a guy that you're going to slam between the tackles 20 times a game.
I mean, he's got 33 carries in 2 games. And he's got 117 receiving yards. I wanted to put him higher on this list because I think he has been probably outside of Ashton Jeanty the most entertaining player I've watched so far this year. He runs incredibly hard for a guy who is 5'8" and 175 pounds. He does not get knocked back. He still finds ways to finish through tackles and knock defenders back when doing it. And like when Pitt added him from Western Carolina, I was like, oh, that could be interesting because he had 2,000 scrimmage yards there over 2 years. I did not expect him to kind of be the engine of the offense, which it seems like he is right now. But it's really fun to watch. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he keeps building on it because I think there's something special there with him.
So again, other guys that didn't quite make it, Corey Kiner from Cincinnati, who dropped 150 on Pitt the other day. Really good back. The running CJ Donaldson and Jaheim White at West Virginia could certainly be in this mix. Ches Malusi has been that type of back at Wisconsin in the past. But let's talk about the three guys on my list that weren't on yours. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, Jordan James from Oregon, and then on Terry Brown that we already talked about. Why did Love and James not make your list? I'm surprised Love's not on your list. Maybe the statistical case, but it felt like he was the one guy who was kind of doing what it needed to be done in Northern Illinois.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Notre Dame deserves it. He is very good, and you make a great point about him sort of handling his business. I do think Jeremiah Love has been good through these first 2 weeks. I don't know. I have a hard time putting anything in Notre Dame in a positive light at the moment, but Jeremiah Love is deserving of some shine for the way he's played the first 2 weeks.
And I thought Jordan James, again, was making some yards on his own for Oregon when their offensive line, you found some stats after our big discussion on Monday that like their offensive line is maybe even having a more difficult time than we even believed in the moment. Again, you get into a big lump of guys who are all very good. And I understand why Jordan James didn't make it, but you still think he's good, right?
Yeah. He's very good. Yeah. I do think Oregon's offensive line will start to get its stuff together, and that will help Jordan James pop a little more.
Okay. Jim Griffin, Jonah Coleman on your list weren't on mine, but the big one that I wish I could have gotten on because I think he's absolutely back. I think it's going to be one of the bigger stories in the North through the course of the season. It's Nick Singleton at Penn State. We talked about in the preseason, sophomore slump for a running back who has a big freshman year is not unusual. And then do you bounce back in year 3? And he has bounced back in year 3, Nick Singleton.
Yeah, he's definitely bounced back. 26 carries, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns through the first 2 games. I like the stat on PFF. It's breakaway yards. It's yards on designed runs that have gone for at least 15 yards. He's number 5 in the country right now. And this is the other thing that jumped out to me. He has 6 runs of 15 yards or more this year. He had 9 last year.
Wow.
Like he is way ahead of the pace from last year. He's just back to, I think, being kind of the big playback we thought he was going to be when Penn State got him out of high school. So it's good to see.
Okay. Those are our top 10. We'll do it again like middle of the year. Darius Taylor, who was hurt for week 1 against Minnesota, was a great back last year, is a guy who could pop on this list. Again, like the teams that have 2 guys, Katron Allen at Penn State is also awesome. And so it's, as you said, Trayvon Henderson at Ohio State, also awesome. So a plethora, a bounty of running backs in the North, and they at the very least deserved a top 10. So we gave them to that. All right. When we come back, more on Kings of the North. And actually, we're done. So thanks to Dan Wetzel, as always, for joining us here on Tuesdays. Thanks to Will Howard for spending some time. We really do want to talk to coaches and players on this show, and we're going to keep trying. Now, just, I've been around Ohio State for 20 years. They know me a little bit better, so maybe they're more willing to say, like, all right, we're not afraid of this guy. So thanks to Ohio State for doing that. But I think we're going to have a Syracuse player this week. I think we're going to have a Rutgers player this week, and then we're going to keep reaching out, especially in the bye weeks, right? That's the best time to get these guys. So we want to talk to media. We might start talking to fans, right? We want to talk to people in the North in every way, shape, and form as it relates to college football. So thanks to you guys for hanging in. Love seeing the comments in there. We're all in this together. Northern brothers and sisters, save your greatest anger for this. That's who we tell to cram it. We can disagree with each other, but don't tell your Northern brothers and sisters to cram it. Save it for the South. Thanks to our producer, Mike Yorostowski, for making us look good and sound good. We will be back on Wednesday with think we'll have Adam Rittenberg from ESPN might join us. I think we will start a big game breakdown. We'll do that on Alabama, Wisconsin. We're going to start talking about these north-south regular season non-conference games, what else is ahead, what the schedule's there's some good stuff ahead. There really is. I'm glad that these teams are willing to do this, and because you've got to make the regular season fun. So we'll do that on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we'll preview all the games as usual. Friday morning, Bets of the North with Tyler Shoemaker. We make a $500 real money bet every Friday. We are 2-0 so far, and we also hit our plus money parlay last week. So we started with a $5,000 bankroll for charity, and we're up over $6,000 already. So who knows? Hopefully we can keep it going. We'd love to see you there if you're interested in college sports betting at all. For now, again, thanks most of all to you guys for joining us. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.